Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome back inside the Horseshoe. This is the Monday after Ohio State's idle week, off week. Already went over that. That's the 40-year vet, Tim May. I'm Spencer Holbrook. Behind me are still standing goalposts, one of 130 FBS stadiums with active goalposts right now, Tim. We referenced that because the Tennessee goalposts were active on Saturday night.
Yeah, they let that duck through, man.
I'm assuming they made their way into the Tennessee River and but that's what we're here to talk about, Tim. No Ohio State game on Saturday, so we don't really have a game to break down. We can break down the first 6 weeks again if we want to. But, Tim, I was sitting there on Saturday, had some family over to watch some football, and all I could think about was, how does all of this that's unfolding in front of me involve and pertain to Ohio State? You had Michigan look really impressive and dominate against Penn State, or you could look at the other side of that coin and say, ooh, that trip to Happy Valley looks a little less intimidating now here in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Next week, I guess, now, as we turn the page into the Iowa week. You had Tennessee take down Alabama, a seismic event in college football. Another thing I was thinking about, Tim, not trying to monologue here, go on a diatribe, but Alabama loses, everybody the whole college football world kind of stops. Oklahoma State loses to TCU. USC no longer unbeaten. Oklahoma gets back on track, beats Kansas. Everything.
Oklahoma gets back on. Oklahoma's on a siding, man. Yeah. They're not getting back on the main track. But go ahead.
And then also, a big one that pertains to Ohio State didn't catch a lot of national attention. Illinois, beats up on, I think, Minnesota. Yeah. And Purdue beats Nebraska. Now you got Illinois and Purdue, the two heavyweights at the top of the Big Ten West. In line to play potentially Ohio State or Michigan now in the Big Ten championship game. I guess Penn State's still in that contention, but you watch that game on Saturday. Everything that happened really does pertain to Ohio State, Tim, and that's what we're here to talk about. We're gonna get into a lot of that.
Yeah, and Penn State obviously to be in it. Michigan's got to lose twice now.
Yep.
You don't really see that happening. I guess it could. They still play Michigan State and Ohio State. They're two nemesis.
And Illinois.
Yeah, but Michigan State and Ohio State are the ones that have beaten them. Of course, Michigan State bounces back and finally gets a win in overtime over Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to your theme. The theme is correct. From the standpoint of, you're watching that game in Alabama, are they going to pull it out in the final moment there with a 50-yard field goal? It sailed wide right, like I said, like my tee shots were doing the other day, and that game's going to overtime, right? No. Tennessee goes whatever it had to go with Hendon Hooker, and a lot of things happen in those final 15 seconds. Number one, Hendon Hooker hit a couple of passes which put him in, and the kid made a great catch. I'm trying to remember the kid's name that made the great catch that set him up in field goal position, and then the kid delivered the duck. As the announcer said, the loaf of bread going through the, doesn't matter, man.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's like, it doesn't matter how it goes through as long as it goes through.
Yep.
And what happens there is, it's just like hitting the reset button on the college football situation around the country with Alabama going down. Alabama, of course, is still in it because they can still win their way into the college football playoff.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt they can. Because what it matters now is it sets up another huge showdown, Tennessee and Georgia coming up. If Tennessee can get past Kentucky too in a couple of weeks, Tennessee and Georgia is going to be ridiculous how much is going to be on the line there. Yeah. But what we're getting to here is, it also reset the Heisman Trophy race, because Hendon Hooker is the real deal. Everybody sees that now. C.J. Stroud has been the runaway, as far as the odds go, the runaway leader for the Heisman Trophy, and he probably still is to a certain extent this week. But now everybody's got their eye on Hendon Hooker from Tennessee, this 24-year-old phenom, former transfer for a couple of years ago. Where did he transfer from? I think Virginia Tech. I can't remember.
Yeah, Virginia Tech.
But the point is, a lot of things got changed with that game, because Hendon Hooker has games now, showcase games, that can put him squarely in the Heisman Trophy race if he comes through with this Tennessee team, which seems to be getting better and better and better. Josh Heupel, boy, man, a lot of people thought Rocky Top was gone for good. Which is very interesting now, what a great job Josh Heupel has done in a couple of years there to turn things around. And of course the SEC race is up for grabs. But the most interesting thing too in the SEC is, now it's the SEC East everybody's got their eye on, not the SEC West, even though Alabama's got a huge game coming up with Ole Miss in a few weeks.
Yep.
Ole Miss still undefeated. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting to watch from afar. And the other thing that happened, Ohio State was already in the driver's seat as far as getting another shot at a college football playoff berth, but now it very much is number 2 in the country. So you're right. When Alabama or Ohio State gets beat, it changes things for a lot of people.
It changes everything in college football, Tim, and that's the conversation is driven by those 2 programs every year. Every single year, you ask the question in the SEC. It's not can they win the SEC. It's can they beat Alabama. In the Big Ten, it's not can they win the Big Ten. It's can they beat Ohio State. When a team beats Alabama, beats Ohio State, It is a huge event. Not only in that conference, but in this sport.
Yeah.
And it changes the conversation. Now I look at things, and I always said if an undefeated SEC team, is up against undefeated Ohio State will not be the number 1 seed in the college football playoff. Well, now this is a lot of ifs, but Alabama goes on to win the SEC championship game. They've got 1 loss. If Ohio State can run the table, you're looking at 13 in Ohio State. Then you talk about
being the Peach Bowl.
You talk about an Ohio State. We're not going to get back into that, Tim, but you're looking at an undefeated Ohio State as the number 1 seed, and so it changes everything because that 1 versus 4 is a lot different than 2 versus 3. We found that out in 2019. LSU got to play a bad Oklahoma, decent but not great Oklahoma team. Ohio State had to play Clemson. Those kind of things they matter. And so now you talk about Tennessee being a contender. I look at Michigan in a little different of a lens than I did, on Friday when we were previewing that game. Now that they roughed up on Penn State, you look at that Michigan rushing attack, and can the Buckeyes, be able to be physical enough to stop what Michigan does on the ground and be able to establish the run against those guys.
Yep.
A lot of things, Tim, were able to unfold in front of Ohio State, and I say in front of because the Buckeyes were sitting at home watching. Ryan Day made it clear. Nobody was working Saturday. They had 1 off day this entire season, really.
Yep.
It was Saturday, and I think whoever made the schedule, the football gods looked down upon us pretty well, Tim, allowing us to watch those games rather than work the Ohio State game on Saturday.
Well, I'm one of the fools that stayed up and watched the end of the USC Utah game. USC had that seemed like to have control of that game, and Utah never went away.
Yep.
And then Cam Rising, as I said, a bad moon rising. That's exactly what that was for USC, and that takes you, in my opinion, that takes USC out of the picture. I mean, that kind of loss because obviously Utah already had 2 losses. A lot of people had them penciled in as a possible 4th team in the college football playoff going into the season.
Yep.
I think the Pac-12 took a hit there. Of course, UCLA is still in there swinging.
Yep.
So we'll see how that goes. But a lot of things, Oklahoma State, TCU, that's as good a football game as you're ever going to watch. I had it on split screen with the Alabama. You think about a 75-inch TV is when you go split screen, you still got 2 35-inch TVs.
That's true.
It's pretty cool. But the bottom line is TCU is the real deal, too. TCU has got a lot of grit. Just like Tennessee does. TCU, I think, is a little bit short-shrifted right now in the rankings, but we'll see how that goes because, like you and I have talked about many times, Ohio State is going to play Michigan. Alabama and Tennessee and Georgia are all going to play each other if, in fact, Alabama wins the West, or Ole Miss is going. So teams are going to get beaten in that group. The team that can still run the table right now that isn't playing somebody in that group is TCU. So a lot of football to be played, but it was definitely the reset button for the middle of the season. And the last 6 weeks of the regular season are going to be ridiculous.
Yeah, Tim, I just think about it this way. If Tennessee beats Georgia and then Alabama beats Tennessee in the SEC championship game, that you've got a lot of 1-loss SEC teams there. Who do you put in the college football playoff? I also think about, if Tennessee loses to Georgia and then Alabama beats Tennessee, well, Tennessee beat Alabama beat Tennessee.
Yeah.
It's just there's so many different options now for this college football playoff, how it could shake out. And, you're 7 weeks into the season, you're sitting on the couch watching all this, and you'd like to think that everything's kind of starting to get a little more clear.
No.
Saturday just mucked it all up. It's really mucky right now. You're really trying to see.
It's like 2007 again for the BCS, the top 2 BCS teams.
Yeah.
Except instead of the final 2 weekends, this is going to happen over the final 7 weekends when you take into account the conference championship games. I mean, it can get really crazy, just like we talked about. This is no cakewalk for Ohio State by any stretch.
No.
I think anybody that thought Michigan had gone away or had like lessened compared to where it was a year ago are sadly mistaken. Now, the question is, can J.J. McCarthy, can some team figure out how to put the ball in J.J. McCarthy's hands and make him have to beat you throwing the ball? That's will be Ohio State's task, obviously, whether it can stop that running game enough to make J.J. McCarthy have to throw it. You know, that was a big question going into the weekend. It was not answered because they rushed for 400 yards or whatever it was. It was crazy, not 400, but a huge number rushing against Penn State, which had been stuffing the run. Of course, Rutgers had been stuffing the run before Ohio State showed up.
Well, Tim, it's interesting because you bring that up, and we can talk a little bit about Michigan. I don't want to get too far into that, but you know, J.J. McCarthy threw the ball 24 times for 144 yards.
We're talking about down the field, making big-time throws down the field under duress.
That's a lot of horizontal, sideline to sideline throws. Not a lot of challenging downfield.
Not like Hendon Hooker did in the last 15 seconds against Alabama.
Yeah, it's interesting. J.J. it seems to be really good at those short, intermediate throws and doesn't throw the ball very well downfield. Then you got Hendon Hooker who throws the ball over the top really well and kind of struggles intermediate and short. So, different strokes for different folks, different quarterbacks for different offenses. But yeah, the Wolverines can run the ball, Tim. I think that's well known now. Ohio State got to watch that firsthand. Like I said, the Woody was closed on Saturday for the most part, and Ryan Day said he was going to watch some games. I know a couple other coaches were able to get out and spend some time with their families. From conversations I had around the Woody, it was just a good day to not have to work really and just be able to watch it all. And down goes USC, down goes Alabama, down goes Penn State.
Down goes Oklahoma State.
So you've got the ranks of the unbeaten. It's a little bit more of an exclusive club. These guys are still in it. And with Iowa on deck, before you get to that, what was a massive showdown against Penn State, I think it's lost a little bit of its luster, not only being at noon, but now Penn State losing, and Penn State now having to turn around and play a very physical, very violent Minnesota team that will run the ball on you.
Yeah.
And Penn State obviously has issues against the run game. It's going to be interesting, Tim. You could see Penn State on a 2-game losing streak when the Buckeyes head to Happy Valley.
Yeah, you could. But I mean, in my opinion, the disappointing team from the West right now is Minnesota. I thought Minnesota had a great shot of winning that thing this year just based on the situation of teams that were coming back. The surprise team is Purdue in the West, obviously. Well, yeah, in Illinois, without a doubt. Illinois, 2 weeks ago, that 9-6 classic against Iowa. But let's put our focus on what matters right now. Is Ohio State is playing is going against one of the worst offenses in the country in Iowa this week, but really one of the better defenses in the country.
Yes.
This is where Ohio State's offense that I'm going to write about this week about how diverse it is. This will be definitely watching a burglar pick a lock against Iowa. Bottom line is what Ohio State can do that a lot of other teams can't in the country is they can run the ball this year, but then they also have maybe the best passing attack in the country. So that gives you a lot of choices when it comes to picking that lock, and that will be the definite challenge for Ohio State on Saturday.
Yeah, Tim, Ohio State has struggled to run the ball at times when they're given a one high safety look. You get 3 linebackers in the box, you bring another safety down, you get 2 corners out on the islands. A couple teams have given the Buckeyes a few different issues trying to run the ball against that one safety look.
That's what it's designed to stop.
You go to the passing game and you force 2 safeties back, and then all of a sudden you can run the ball really well, and they still have to keep those 2 safeties back to respect the passing game. That's the challenge for this Iowa defense is how, I guess.
Oh, yeah, that's the challenge for...
It's the dumb question, but like, how are you going to play these guys? And so if Jackson Smith and Jigba's back, I don't see how Iowa does. But if anybody is going to figure out this Ohio State offense and how to maybe...
Wait a minute, let me interrupt you. I mean, everybody, and I understand the fixation on Jackson Smith and Jigba. Probably the best returning wide receiver in the country. But Ohio State has already proven it can throw the ball, that it's deep in the wide receiver room. I mean, Jackson Smith-Njigba will add to that, but Ohio State is not inadequate at all without him.
Oh, no.
If you follow my drift.
Not at
I mean,
all.
Julian Fleming has been one of the stories of the last several weeks, the way he has come back finally and showing you, okay, that's Julian Fleming. That's that guy you were talking about 3 years ago about being a 5-star. You know, Emeka Egbuka is the breakout player of the nation, in my opinion, in the wide receiving core aspect of things. And Marvin Harrison Jr. is biding his time before he follows his dad in the NFL and becomes a star on that level.
That's true.
So, and then you've got maybe the nation's, well, I think the nation's best quarterback in C.J. Stroud. I really, truly believe that based on what I saw over the weekend. I think Bryce Young is really, obviously he's coming back from being injured. He threw the ball 52 times, so he must not.
Must not be that injured.
Yeah, and then Hendon Hooker is this guy who was kind of coming on last year and is now, but my point is, this Ohio State offense, wow, I would be more concerned at this moment as we talk on a Monday on the health of Mayan Williams from the standpoint of being he and Travion Henderson sharing the load against a hard-hitting, sound Iowa run defense. That's what, you know, that would be my concern. If Jackson Smith-Njigba plays, that is a bonus.
I guess.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but people keep asking me about it, and I go, man, they've moved on from, you know, it's like they've been very good without Jackson Smith-Njigba.
Well, I guess, Tim, the point that I was going to make, and
I think you're changing your mind about the point you were going to make.
You raise a
based on the point I just made.
No, not at all. You raise a very valid point here.
Okay.
The point I'm trying to make is, if Jackson Smith-Njigba is healthy, and you don't bracket him or try to put help on him,
how you stop it?
He's going to get the ball.
Yeah.
But if he's doing that, and you choose not to bracket him, and you also choose not to bracket Emeka Egbuka, then
I guess the point I'm making is, for this offense to flourish, even if Jackson Smith-Njigba is there, he doesn't have to get the ball. I guess that's the point I'm making.
Because he demands attention, even if he's only got 4 catches for 36 yards so far this season. When he is back in the lineup, he will demand that attention. And
but the other 3 guys are doing that too.
For sure.
I mean, they're demanding attention. Somebody is getting single coverage on every play, obviously.
And then you also factor in Cade Stover, and like you said, the running game, and potentially G. Scott being into the fold. Like I was going to say, if there's one defensive mind in this league that I think has a chance to kind of play cat and mouse with Ryan Day, it's Phil Parker.
Yeah.
He is very, very good at what he does.
Yes.
Does Phil Parker have not only the scheme, because scheme can make up for some talent, but across 60 minutes, we've seen talent take over time and time again, Tim.
Yeah, Saturday we saw it.
It took over Saturday. It took over when Ohio State played Notre Dame on this very turf a few weeks. You know, at the end of the day, Ohio State had the dudes.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame in the fourth quarter didn't have the same kind of.
They shoved Notre Dame down the field.
And so, yes, Iowa will present challenges to this Ohio State offense. I'm very interested to see that cat-mouse fun that Ryan Day and Phil Parker have across the field from each other. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to bet against Ohio State right now because of what this offense can do. And by the way, Tim, Iowa has I'm not going to sugarcoat anything this week, I promise. You know how I am. This Iowa offense is awful. It is awful. It's so terrible.
So you're saying they're not very good?
They're so bad. They're 131st in the country. And folks, there are 131 FBS programs. They are 131st in the country in offense.
Thank God they played Nevada.
Yeah, or else they'd maybe be whatever's below the last.
Yeah, well,
it's
like Urban Meyer was talking about this on Urban's Takes It thing I do. They were down below many FCS schools when you rated them. I mean, from an offensive standpoint and stuff, several weeks ago, and I don't think it's gotten much better.
No, not at all. And so,
here's what you're trying to say. Can I sum up what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
This is the moment when the Ohio State defense steps up and takes a stranglehold on a team and doesn't let go. I do believe that. I thought it was going to be that way a week and a half ago at Michigan State, and it almost was, but you throw a pick six, boom, they get a touchdown. And my point is, I think this is the game where you see the Jim Knowles defense really, but will we rate it that way based on who they're playing? You know what I mean? Based on the competition. Well, that's what's going to be interesting. Because I'm telling you, Iowa's offensive line, just like I was talking about before Ohio State played Wisconsin, this is not the Wisconsin offensive lines of old. You could watch that again on Saturday when Michigan State was going against them. This is not the Iowa offensive lines you're used to seeing. I mean, bottom line is Ohio State's defense could really, really step up and really take center stage in this one.
So, Tim, Iowa had 6 points against Illinois on 2 short fields. One of them was off of a muff punt inside the 5-yard line. They ended up moving backward and still kicking a field goal.
Dude, Iowa scored 7 points in their opener this year and didn't score a touchdown.
Yes. They also, you watch that Michigan game, Iowa did not move the ball until they started throwing the ball, which is kind of weird that Michigan allowed them to throw the ball a little bit there at the end, but I think that was in garbage time anyways. Pseudo garbage time. I think Michigan knew that they had that game wrapped up.
Yeah.
All of that is to say, this Iowa offense is terrible. It is awful. And if Ohio State has a defense that can win a national championship, this Iowa offense will not have over 200 total yards, just as the Michigan State offense had 105 yards.
Shouldn't you save that for bold predictions?
Well, I'm not predicting it. Well, hey.
No, that's like the sun coming up right now. Everybody can see that it's coming.
Stay tuned for Friday. Bold predictions will be a fun episode when I get to talk about Brian Ferentz and this Iowa offense, I promise.
Okay.
But yeah, Tim, I think this defense has a good opportunity to really show, this is a bad offense. And if you are a respectable defense that has taken the next step, you will completely shut this Iowa offense down. That's all to conversation for Saturday.
Yeah.
After the last Saturday, Tim, I could talk about this kind of stuff for hours because of how much fun I had watching all those games.
I heard you had a party
Saturday
at your house. That's what your Uncle Dan told me.
Yeah, a little bit.
I was on his radio show.
A little bit of one, Tim. Not too many people, but we had some family and friends over to celebrate a few birthdays.
Did y'all roast a pig?
No, not a whole hog, Tim. But we might roast a whole hog because today is Matt Parker's birthday, the recruiting extraordinaire for LettermenRow.com. If you've made it this far in the video, make sure you go to Matt Parker LR at Matt Parker LR on Twitter. Tell him happy birthday, folks. He's doing a great job covering recruiting, and it's a celebratory day for Matt. He's got some good photos, like you said.
Yeah.
So happy birthday, Matt. Wanted to give a shout out there. Tim, let's get out of here. It's pretty cold.
Brisk.
It's cold out here. It shouldn't be this cold on Saturday when Ohio State and Iowa fill this place up. Saturday, October 22nd in the Horseshoe at noon. Big noon Saturday. I think Urban Meyer is going to be here for the whole show, former national championship ball coach. Tim and I will also be here. That's Tim May, the 40-year vet. I'm Spencer Holbrook. Make sure you hit the little bell below. Get a notification every time we make one of these videos. But again, for Tim, I'm Spencer. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back in the Horseshoe on Saturday, and we'll see you in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center for a full breakdown of the Ryan Day press conference on Tuesday.